Mr. Schiff, you are already an old friend with this orchestra because you have been here a couple of times. This concert begins with two works that are not so much apart, 10 years maybe. It would be easy to think that Haydn is the one who is conservative compared with Beethoven, but is he really?
No, Haydn is never conservative. He is one of the most innovative composers of all time. And there is also a teacher-pupil relationship between them. However, as we know, Beethoven as a young man was a very rebellious young man, so he revolted against the master, and he said as a young man that from Haydn you could learn nothing. But later he revised this opinion, and of course it's very easy to see any piece by Beethoven and see how much he had learned from Haydn, the variation technique, and also architecturally, that both of these masters, they built from small motives, small cells, sometimes just 2 or 3 notes, and build a whole movement or even a whole sonata or symphony from that. And in this respect, Beethoven is the son of Haydn.
Beethoven concerto you conduct from the keyboard. I'm assuming you prefer it that way. What advantages do you get from that?
We know from history that when Beethoven played this concerto, he did it that way. There was no such thing as a conductor that time. Either he did it from the keyboard or even with a symphony, the concertmaster was leading the orchestra. So the conductor as such is a very new phenomenon. It goes back to the time of Mendelssohn, let's say, in the 1820s, 1830s. But before that, there was never really a conductor. And if you do it with a conductor, maybe you get more precision. Everything is much more together. But is this really the purpose of music, to be so precise? I think we have largely, because of recordings, listeners have gotten used to a certain perfection, which is not really perfection. It's just, everything is precise and together, but it is not really spontaneous, it's not really alive, not breathing. And if I do it as chamber music, leading from the keyboard, a little bit of conducting, but not very much. I just expect the orchestra to be a partner in this, in a dialogue.
So in classical repertoire, it's quite a natural extension to conduct. But conducting Bartók, that's a step further. How have you experienced that step?
Well, it's a big step further, yes. However, this is also, although it's a very, very complex masterpiece of Bartók from 1936, so just before World War II. It has this feeling of, before a tragedy. And still this was a very fruitful, very important period in Bartók's life in Switzerland, at the invitation of Paul Zacher, who was a great patron of music and of the arts, and he was a very fine musician himself, violinist and conductor, and he was leading the Basel Chamber Orchestra, and he commissioned this piece from Bartók. So it is a chamber orchestra piece. It's not a symphony orchestra piece, and it starts with a fantastic fugue, reminiscent of Beethoven's last string quartets, especially of the C-sharp minor quartet, opus 131. So it pays homage to Beethoven, it pays homage to Bach, the Bachian counterpoint and polyphony, and furthermore, he has elevated the percussion instruments to a level that has not been known. He uses the percussion in a poetic way. He has invented poetry for percussions. This is something extraordinary. And the combination of that and plus the harp, the piano, the celesta and the strings, and very, very complex structures.
So not long after this work, Bartók left Hungary because he couldn't agree with the regime in Hungary. And it's chilling that you have done the same thing much, much later. Is it too dramatic to compare these two circumstances?
Bartók's lesson is that he, as a human being, he could have stayed in Hungary in 1940, but as a humanist, as an artist, he couldn't stand it. He said, I have to leave my homeland, leave everything behind, because I cannot face this. When people say that such and such music is tolerated and other music and other art is degenerate, and the politicians decide that. So this is not happening today. I'm not saying that. It's not a dictatorship in Hungary. However, people are still forced to think a certain way because they are badly informed. The information, the media is controlled. What people read, what they see on television, they hear on the radio, this is all state controlled. And the newspapers outside of Budapest, in the smaller cities, and that's what people read there. They don't read the big newspapers, they don't read the New York Times, they don't read the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, so they read their local newspaper, and that is all state controlled. And all they read is basically lies. However, not everybody stays there, and we have seen now almost an exodus of brilliant young people leaving the country. Maybe London is the second Hungarian city now.